I want to get into the running backs thing, which is the big story of the week. But before I do, I feel like there's another story it's getting a little sprinkle of coverage here and there, but for I think the enormity of it, it's sort of flying under the radar. Now, I don't know if it's true or not. That's why I'm hoping you can help us out here. But you're hearing more and more about either Bill Belichick is on the hot seat. This is a huge year for Bill Belichick. Maybe there's tension between Bill Belichick and Robert Kraft. To me, I don't know if you're the Patriots, you have to let the guy have, carte blanche and let him do what he wants. But that's just me. Is there any validity to all these reports?
The moment for me, Jimmy, happened in late March when the owners met in Arizona, and Robert Kraft usually does a session with the media that covers the Patriots. And one of the questions he was asked, and I'm paraphrasing as closely to an actual quote as I can. He was asked, does Bill Belichick need to get back to the playoffs, or will he stay with the Patriots long enough to pass Don Shula on the all-time wins list for coaches? And Kraft's response wasn't, what are you talking about? Wait, he's here as long as he wants to be here. He's got carte blanche. He's my coach until he decides to stop coaching. He's won 6 Super Bowls, folks. Why would you even ask that question if he needs to have a playoff season? He didn't say that. He said, we'd love for all of our players to have great statistics, but we're here to win. Now, the stat in this case is wins, but his point is we're not going to keep him around just to check off enough wins to catch Shula if there's too many losses to go along with it. And he said other things, like he was asked in a event with Michael Rubin from Fanatics recently what will give him satisfaction this year, and he said a 7th Super Bowl win. Do you really see the Patriots as a Super Bowl contender? I got them middle of the pack in the AFC. So I think there's pressure on Belichick, who has missed the playoffs 2 of the last 3 years, and the one time he made it, he got blown out by the Bills 47-17. I think if he doesn't make the playoffs this year, I think it's one of those situations where you kind of sit back and wait and see what happens. And this is all new territory for all of us. A guy who's been so great for so long, all of a sudden, his fastball is gone. Well, his fastball went to Tampa Bay, and now his fastball is retired. Without Tom Brady, he hasn't been the same coach. And that thing from last year, that Frankenstein monster on offense, with Matt Patricia as the de facto coordinator and Joe Judge as the quarterback's coach, that was a mess. That created dysfunction between Belichick and Mac Jones. And Kraft has basically said it was a mess. And if I said it last year, Jimmy, as it was happening, if any other coach was doing this, we would be saying, has this man lost his damn mind? And so that's his latest installment for his resume. So I think he is under pressure. And I think there is a way the dominoes fall this year where Robert Kraft decides it's time to move on.
So if the Patriots don't make the playoffs, Mike Florio wouldn't be shocked if the Patriots moved on from Bill Belichick after the 2023 season.
And I think it would be sold in a very PR sanitized way as the two sides have decided that it's time for a mutual parting. They use that term mutual parting all the time to cover up a firing. Robert Kraft wouldn't fire Bill Belichick. It would be, and he wouldn't write on a cocktail napkin, I resign as HC of the NEP. It would be something where they lock arms and they try to part ways with smiles on their faces, or as close to a smile as Bill Belichick can ever muster.
One of the more underrated crazy sports stories of our lifetime was Belichick resigning from the Jets on a napkin. I do think, I think it's a ridiculous expectation to put on Belichick. How are they going to make the playoffs when the 3 teams in the division are not just a little bit better than them, but a lot better? And he doesn't have a quarterback. How are they going to make the playoffs? It's ridiculous.
And he's got to play the Chiefs, the Chargers, the Cowboys, the Eagles, the Giants, in addition to the round robin home and home against the Bills, the Dolphins, and the Jets. That's why I've been, ever since, we know what the schedule is going to be as it relates to who plays whom and where. We know that as soon as the regular season ends. But it doesn't feel real until they pull the sheet off of the full slate. And once they did that and I started looking at the schedule, it's like, man, these AFC East teams have a tough road this year. And it may be you win the division or you go home. And the Patriots on paper are the worst team in the division. And they've gone 22 years. Mike Reese of ESPN.com pointed this out earlier in the offseason. 22 years the Patriots have gone without finishing in fourth place in the division, and I think this is the year where they are most in danger. They've been the Globetrotters all those years, and the other three teams were the Washington Generals. That's flipped now. They're playing catch up with everybody else.
Listen, unless Josh Allen and Aaron Rodgers and Tua get hurt, they're finishing last. I mean, there's no doubt about it. I will say I hate the narrative about Belichick's record might not be authentic because he had Brady, and once Brady left, Belichick did nothing. But I will say on what you said, what he did last year with the offensive coordinators, to me, is the biggest stain on his entire Patriot tenure. Like, there's just no logical reason for what I found it shocking that this is a coach whose entire career was based around no distractions. And then he created his own distraction by having a two-headed, inept monster as offensive coordinator. It made no sense on so many different levels.
Look, I think that for Brady and Belichick together, there was a symbiosis that allowed them to carry themselves to greatness together. But to be a truly great coach, you've got to have great quarterback play. And Mike Vick made the observation a couple of weeks back on Tyreek Hill's podcast that Andy Reid is possibly the greatest head coach of all time. And at first blush, it's like, oh, come on. Belichick has 6. Reid has 2. Get out of here with that talk. But, you start thinking about it. And I did a post at PFT. I went back all the starting quarterbacks Andy Reid has had since 1999 when he became head coach of the Eagles, and all the starting quarterbacks Bill Belichick has had since 2001 when Brady took over for Drew Bledsoe. He benefited from Brady, and mostly Brady, except for 2008 after he suffered the torn ACL and the suspension in 2016 from Deflategate. It was Brady every year, every game, every postseason. And when you look at what Reid has done with lesser quarterbacks and the fact that he's got Mahomes on the front end of his prime and he's 65, and if he keeps going as long as he wants to go, and why would you stop with Patrick Mahomes as your quarterback? He could catch Belichick with 6. And he could become regarded generally as a better coach than Belichick, given what the Chiefs are currently doing. I mean, since the last time Belichick won a postseason game, Reid has been to 3 Super Bowls and won 2.
Yeah, it's hard. I mean, I get it. It's hard for me to wrap my brain around. People say, this is where I get frustrated with the Belichick. Like, I don't know. I guess we have to see how it plays out with Reid, but they're going to win a couple more. He just
needs a quarterback. Belichick needs a quarterback. You can't be a great coach with a mid-level guy who is clearly the worst quarterback, as you said, in the division. They got Allen, Tua, and Rodgers. Mac Jones is 4th out of 4, and there's a gap between him and the other 3.
Yeah. This is why I think, over time, I think we always forget about what goes on in the past. And I still think, listen, if you say to me I always say Bill Belichick's the greatest coach of all time because of the record. But if I can make the argument that the greatest coach of all time is Parcells from this standpoint. Yes, he had the 2 Super Bowls, but here's what Parcells did that Belichick and Reid haven't done. Took over the Giants. They were garbage. Won 2 Super Bowls. Took over the Jets. I mean, they were worse than garbage. Got them into the AFC title game with Vinny Testaverde. And then he took over the Cowboys, who at that time stunk. And brought, and the Patriots. Obviously, the Patriots were complete garbage. I mean, he did it 4 times. Now, I know I get everyone wants to judge everything on Super Bowls, and I do that too. But to me, you take 4 franchises and you turn 4 franchises around from complete garbage to title games and Super Bowls, and that is more impressive than the Super Bowls to me. But that's just me.
Here's a question for you. If Bill Belichick would have a mutual parting with the Patriots, they don't make it to the playoffs, shortly after the end of the regular season, he's available, just as however many teams are looking for new coaches commence the process of interviewing and considering. Does he land somewhere else immediately? Is there an owner out there that throws the keys to 71-year-old Bill Belichick and basically lets him supplant the GM with whoever he wants to bring in or himself and just says, okay, Bill, here you go. Do for me what you did for Robert Kraft?
I 1,000%. Because there are so many teams in the league that would need that sort of revitalization. And you can bring up the fact that he's faltered without Brady, but so much of this too is about marketing, selling tickets. So if you're like, I don't know, who's, the Texans or who's another like nondescript. Even like, how about the Chargers? Okay. The Chargers, who everyone thinks has all this talent, and they never do anything. Like maybe he's the missing piece there, you know?
Well, and the Chargers would be attractive because they have the thing that he needs in Justin Herbert.
Right. And fans don't care about the Chargers. He'd bring, he'd win over some fans. He'd create something there. So,
hey, what a division that would be. Andy Reid, Sean Payton, Josh McDaniels, and Bill Belichick.
Yeah.
I'd sign on for that.